So already you're gonna have like a number of different characters coming in right off the streets to begin with, and the fact that it's developed into something so much more than just that now.
Tell me about that, because I'm new. What has it developed into? Because to my understanding, almost with 400 or something people move here every day or something crazy like that. So what have... On this episode of Cream Talk, brought to you by the Kiwi Creamery and Coffee Company, located on Westheimer Road in Houston, Texas, where we sit down and interview people on location to find out what's on top of their minds, their day, and their heart. And I had the pleasure of sitting down with James, who walked into the creamery and never walked back out again. And we discussed the Houston area and how it changed after Hurricane Katrina, the importance of family, and also the Yogi Polar. Check it out. We are broadcasting out of the Kiwi Creamery and Coffee Company on Westheimer. And here with me today is my friend James, who works at the Kiwi Creamery. And we're going to find out what's on the top of his mind, what's been on top of his day, and what's been on the top of his heart. Because that's what Cream Talk is all about, finding interesting stories and talking to people and learning.
Sounds
so,
good.
James,
Yeah.
what brought you to work at this wonderful establishment?
So it was actually, and you'll find this a lot with a lot of us that have worked here or work here now. First and foremost, I was a customer before I was an employee.
Oh, okay.
My best friend and I, we were walking around, as most people do out here in Montrose, whenever they're out in the town for a little bit. And we happened to be walking towards Annville, which is just right up the road here. And I looked over as we were walking by and I was like, ooh, ice cream. Like, I really want some. So my best friend was like, let's go in. So we came in, checked it out. The very first flavor that I ever had was the Hokey Pokey, which of course...
everybody keep talking about this Hokey Pokey.
It's the best. And what I love about it too, and it's one thing that I always make sure to tell guests whenever they come in, is that it's our bread and butter. Like, that's our staple right there. So us being a New Zealand-based franchise, that's what makes it our signature flavor, because of the fact that the candy that we use, other than it being a flavor directly from New Zealand that everyone grew up with, the candy that we use actually comes directly from there too. It's like a chocolate covered, like honeycomb toffee kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds. Mike explained to me the process behind making that, and it seemed very interesting.
Yeah,
wow,
it's a real intricate thing,
especially. Is this something new to you as well?
Oh yeah, and the flavor, the texture too. Like, it's really cool because it's. A lot of people liken it to gelato, the texture of our ice cream, because it's so soft and like creamy. But I always tell everyone now, it's velvet right here. That's what this is. Like, this is just straight frozen velvet right here.
That's
so
good.
It's good stuff. But yeah, I love this place.
Now, let me ask you: Did you grow up in Houston?
So I grew up in a really tiny town right outside of Houston. Not right outside. I'd say probably about like 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay.
South 59 here.
Okay.
It's Bowling, Wharton County. Most people know it from
I've heard of Wharton. Yes.
If you're ever on your way to Corpus, you know Wharton by the Buc-ee's. That's on the way up there.
Buc-ee's? What's a Buc-ee's?
Buc-ee's is it's a huge gas station franchise here in Texas.
Oh, okay.
From the Beaver. That's their mascot.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
They're also known for having the cleanest restrooms.
Buc-ee's, yes. I was wondering. I was driving one day and I seen that Beaver, and I was like, that's the weirdest gas station. I didn't know if it was an amusement park or a gas station.
Right, because they're so huge. But I mean, that's Texas, right? Everything's bigger in Texas.
Now,
so when I was 13, we actually lived in Houston for the very first time that I ever lived here. Was when I was 13 years old, and back then it was right around the time that Katrina happened. So we noticed like a lot of influx of people coming from New Orleans and from Louisiana moved here, and they ended up staying here, and it really changed a lot, like cuisine wise. And I'm a huge foodie, so I love that, and I'm a huge fan of Cajun food. Like, that's my favorite type of food. And
Louisiana has a lot of culture itself.
Oh,
so imagine mixing it here. I bet it was a big change.
Yep. Ever since then, Houston itself and this area too, it's just grown into so much more. Like, this area now is more artistic.
Okay.
That's why you see, for me,
better food.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's better food. The setting too. Like, that's why you see if you drive up and down Westheimer, especially in this area, you'll see a lot of murals on the sides of buildings because the local artists are incorporated or asked to do that. You know, they're asked to come in and paint these awesome murals. I mean, you know how it is this day and age. You got to do something for the gram, right? So
yeah. I do notice that I was driving past here one day, and it's a building up the side of the road, and I seen a lot of people out there taking pictures. And I'm pretty bad about taking pictures and catching those memories, but it seems like this would be the perfect scenery. This road,
for sure,
here for catching good pictures, and people are up and down the street walking around, shopping and things like that. Do you have a second favorite flavor?
A second favorite flavor, the Yogi Polar.
The Yogi
Polar.
Right now, you're a chocolate, vanilla, strawberry guy, mainly.
Yeah, I'm all flavors.
Oh,
I love
sugar.
flavor. Yeah.
I love sugar.
But what I love about it is that and I would tell people all the time, it frustrates me whenever I would sample amounts of people and they would make this like weird face, like it was sour because it's tart because it's yogurt based, so you get a natural yogurt flavor to it. So to turn it around to kind of what I like to do, especially since I'm working in the food industry for as long as I have been. You have to come to an understanding that you have to basically build a roadmap for people to test it out on their palate in order for them to find the better flavors that are inside of all types of food. So when it comes to ice cream, it's no different than like, you know, describing like a plate of food, like a plate of enchiladas or something like that to somebody. So with the Yogi Polar, I tell them, like, to me, the flavors mesh so well together that it almost tastes like an ice cream, like cheesecake, like a berry cheesecake, you know?
Yum.
Yeah, it's so good.
you know, I hear a little passion for cooking and the science of it in there, because I never heard anyone word it the way you just did as far as tasting food, create a roadmap for their palate.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said, so what other type of, I guess, food, what other interactions with food have you had as far as in working in restaurants or?
I cook. I love to cook, and
so maybe it started at home.
Oh yeah, that's something that's just been part of my life ever. I mean, I grew up from I'm a child of divorce, you know, so you know, like most kids, especially when you're young. You end up in a single parent household have to pick up the slack a little bit more when you're the oldest. Me being the oldest, that's where I came into.
And how many siblings?
I'm one of 3.
Okay.
My immediate siblings. Now that my mom's married to my stepfather, I'm one of 6. So.
Okay. And cooking was something that you had to take on early to take care of your siblings.
Yeah.
I see. So that's where the joy of it comes in.
Honestly, it's my passion.
I can hear it. Hear it. So I assume that a lot of your early memories and things, you know, probably revolve around food. So I guess I can see what may attract you to ice cream, because it seemed like ice cream is a fun thing for families. Like, we just had kids in here earlier making a lot of noise while we were doing a podcast, and it seemed like ice cream and cakes is something that people, I guess, congregate around.
Oh yeah, anything that brings families together. I think the focal point of that always tends to be food. My mom and I have this thing, especially when it comes to cooking, that the closest, most intimate place you can be with your family is the dinner table. And I mean, that's when when you're eating, your guard is let down regardless, you know, because especially if you're eating something delicious. And I mean, what do you do when you're with your family and you're enjoying something great to eat? You have that moment where you can sit and be intimate with each other.
And actually talk to each other.
And talk to each other, you know, and that's something that a lot of people, especially since the 60s with the TV dinner and everything that came about, like, it was something that people feel like is lost, you know, now that the TV is such a huge focal point in the household. People tend to center themselves around it. Like, even growing up, like, our home, like, our table was never far from the TV when my mom met my stepfather. Prior to that, the dinner table was us. It was away from any visual point of any screen.
This is the early years.
Right. And then,
you know, you're right, because I'm an 80s baby, and I can remember the TV. You couldn't see the TV. Well, the way our house was set up, you couldn't see the TV where the table was. But as I got older and we got in our teenage years, we would take our dinner and go to our different rooms. So that played a big part for you. You thought that was a big part of your upbringing. That dinner table. That's big. That's a big point that you bring up, because I feel like a lot of us are getting more and more disconnected.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you
man.
for talking with me, James. James has been kind enough to guide me around here, talk with me. We are in the hot back part of the Creamery.
The hot box.
The hot box. Yeah, we're in the hot box of the Creamery. If you are ever down on Westheimer visiting, shopping, make sure you stop at the Kiwi Creamery and meet James. He'll be happy to give you some of the hokey pokey. And the other one was the
Yogi Polar.
The Yogi Polar. And this is another episode of Cream Talk with your host Andre Preach Life and James, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Later.
Hey man, that was perfect.
Thanks, man.
That was perfect.